Imagine a town where people are just going about their daily business, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, as if hit by some kind of magical spell, some people start falling asleep, or acting drowsy and almost zombie-like in a stupor, sometimes hallucinating or babbling nonsense, only to snap out of it hours or days later. This is exactly what started happening in a small region of Northern Kazakhstan in 2013. A mysterious sleep-inducing condition spontaneously descended upon the village of Kalachi and the neighbouring mining town of Krasnogorsk, beginning in the spring of 2013. It was the month of March when the bizarre phenomena started, and went on to afflict more than 140 people, around 17% of the local population. Men, women and children were struck equally, with no apparent explanation as to why or how this was happening. Residents would suddenly fall asleep, regardless of where they were or what they were doing. Numerous people suffered more than once from the worrying condition, some of which slept for almost a week in one stretch. Upon waking, they would suffer from headaches, amnesia, dopiness, and a general feeling of weakness. The tabloid newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda conducted an investigation and described how the mysterious condition was affecting one of the victims, reporting that the patient seems to be conscious, he can even walk, and then he still falls into a deep sleep while snoring, and when he is awakened, the person doesn't remember anything. A bad batch of vodka was first suspected for causing the illness, possibly caused by a fault at a factory, or from moonshine or homebrewed alcohol, but this theory was soon proved to be false. Adults at work or in the streets, children at school, no one was safe from the mystery illness that seemed to strike at random. As well as the aforementioned symptoms, people were also reporting hallucinations, some of which were strange and frightening. The Komsomolskaya Pravda newspaper report also mentioned the experience of two young boys who had vivid hallucinations. Misha Pyukin, one of the youngsters, said that they saw light bulbs and horses flying around their room, as well as snakes slithering in their beds and worms eating their hands. Misha also said his mother appeared to have 8 eyes and even grew a trunk. The other young child, Rudolf Boyarinos, had no memory after the event, but at the time he had to be held down by 4 people and was shouting out about monsters. The terrifying sleeping sickness affected local animals too, with one newspaper reporting that a local cat owner had observed her pet throwing himself at walls and jumping around the house like crazy, meowing a lot and then falling asleep. He slept all day long, not reacting to anything, and to quote his owner, Elena, snored like a man until dinner. Investigations were launched by numerous groups and involved the likes of chemists, nuclear scientists, doctors and epidemiologists. Food and drink from local shops were taken for testing. Samples of soil, air and water were taken. Victims had hair, blood and even nail samples taken for testing. As such, disease and parasitic infections such as trypanosomiasis, commonly referred to as sleeping sickness, were ruled out by these biological screenings. Frustratingly, nothing conclusive came from any of the investigations. Many people suspected that the issue had something to do with an old uranium mine nearby, which was in operation during Soviet times. The Health Ministry of Kazakhstan tested many local homes for traces of radiation and other telltale signs of exposure, but found nothing of significance. Slightly higher levels of radon were found in a few properties, but nothing that concerned officials or would explain the sleeping sickness and how it seemed to target random people. It's this random nature of the illness that makes it all the more perplexing. If it was radiation, then why should it affect her husband, but not the wife, who lives in the same house? There are several conspiracy theories surrounding the phenomena, one of them being that the locals were being poisoned on purpose in order to move them on, so the land could be claimed for development, or for the natural resources hidden beneath its foundations. Others seem to believe it has something to do with secret weapons testing, or even extraterrestrials. It's claimed that the location of the victims appears to be in straight lines, as if some kind of beam was blasted in a single direction. However, no clear evidence has been brought forward to substantiate this claim. The official explanation that has been reached seems questionable also. This explanation, which you'll find in a lot of the media, is that the illness was indeed caused by the old uranium mines. It's believed that concentrations of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons built up there and leaked out into the nearby area. This build-up and associated drop in oxygen levels is what has been blamed for the sleeping sickness and all its disturbing side effects. There's a few problems with this explanation. The first is, how could levels of carbon monoxide be so high out in the open air and remain concentrated long enough to cause people to become affected? Why would it affect some people but not others, even those in the same location at the same time? And finally, it's quite well known how dangerous carbon monoxide poisoning is and how lethal it can be. How come nobody has died from this? Strong men, young children, and even small animals such as cats have been affected, all seemingly in the same way. Surely the dose needed for a man to become drowsy would be lethal to a small animal. Byron Crape of Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan has a newer theory. He and a group of scientists from the university conducted a thorough long-term study, taking into account all the other findings and theories. Upon further investigation, they discovered one common fact. Many of the villagers drank water from a single source that was pumped from out of the ground. They concluded that the underground water supply must have had unknown chemicals leaked into it. They said that chemical waste was often disposed of in metal barrels back in the Soviet era. They hypothesized that one of the old mines had been used to dump such barrels, which must have corroded and slowly poisoned the underground water supply. Unfortunately, this theory still doesn't account for the fact that members of the same households did not suffer equally from the sleeping sickness, with some people not being affected at all, despite drinking the same water. Since it's been years since the last case, the only way to help solidify this poisoned water hypothesis is to venture into the old mines, which is impossible at present, since they're too dangerous to enter. There are plans to develop a drone or some kind of unmanned vehicle to enter the mines and search for evidence, which ultimately may or may not help shed light on this strange and unexplained mystery.